So what I've done so far is I've cut apart the different parts of the transfer and marked the back so I know which backing goes with which transfer. It just makes it a little bit easier to store after you clean everything up at the end of your project. So again, we're using the 10 by 10 inch board from Couture. So again, I'm going to peel, if you haven't seen me do this before, but the back of these are sticky. It's a transfer that you can stick to different surfaces. And actually here in the letters, you can see here, this is all screen. So instead of it being like a traditional stencil where it's completely open and you would put your paint in there, it's actually a little screen, so it's a little bit different. But you can go ahead, and what I do first is I fuzz the transfer, especially because it's brand new, has never been used before. What that does is it picks up some of the fuzz from the cloth and puts a little fuzz back here, and then makes it a little bit easier to release. So when you're trying to peel the transfer up when you're finished, okay, it allows it to be able to be pulled up. But if you don't like where you put it, it is repositionable. You can just reattach it to a different place. Okay, if it's not straight or not centered. You can take the time to measure. I typically just kind of eyeball it or use my hands kind of say, oh, is that about the same amount of width on each side? And then we have to decide what color we're going to use. And because it is on a black board, and we're going to keep this one very simple, just like the transfer states. Keep it simple, keep life simple. Trying to in these times. Now, my white chalk paste is almost completely out, and so this is pretty well dried up. So if I had more in there, I would take the time to do this. But you can reconstitute this by just spraying a little bit of water in the container and then covering it back up and letting it sit for a little bit and let the water kind of reabsorb back in, and that allows you to then, you can stir it and get that last little bit out. But because, like I said, because it was the very end, I actually have a brand new one, so you can kind of see how they come shipped. These containers have a seal that you have to pull off, and that can just go in the trash. Throw it in the trash over there. And then you do want to stir it. And this is a little thick, okay? You want it to be the consistency of, sour cream, yogurt, that kind. So this is a little bit thick. But because it's an all-natural product, all you have to do is spray it like I was showing you before. You spray a little bit of water, distilled water, so that there no germs get in there and bacteria to grow, which can make it smell really funky and gross. And you just stir it. And I've had this one for a while, so it's going to take me just a minute to get it ready to use today. I'm going to add just a little bit more water. What's nice too is if you end up adding too much water, you can just let it sit. If it becomes too thin and runny, if you just let it sit for a few minutes with the lid off, and some of that will, begin to evaporate a little bit, and it'll thicken up. So that is looking pretty good. Just a little bit more water. Whoa! Just a little bit more water. Just to get it, because again, you also want the paste, you don't want your paste so thick that it's going to dry while it's on the transfer. Makes it a little bit harder to clean. So you want it nice and smooth. Oh, brand new chalk. Love it. Chalk paste, I should say, not just chalk. All right, I think that's gonna be pretty good. So what we're gonna do is, you could put all the stencils, or all the stencils, listen to me, all of the transfers down at once if you wanted that, you know, if you like that spacing. I want to make my words a little bit closer together, so I'm going to overlap them. So I'm going to just do one at a time. All right. So we're going to get our squeegee, and we're going to take just a little bit of the chalk paste, smear it on there, and then taking my squeegee, I'm just going to pull it straight down over the screen so that it all gets covered. Now, before I remove the transfer, I want to scrape off all the extra. It goes right back into the container, so as you can see, it uses very little and it will last quite a while. This is the first, I've been doing this for over a year, and this is the first time I've completely gone through an entire container of chalk, okay? Paste, chalk paste, that's what I'm trying to say. So then you're just gonna pull this up, and because we fuzzed it so well, it comes off pretty easy. Then we take our transfer and we just put it in. We have a little container of water over here, like a little water bath. I have a little dish tub with just room temperature water, not hot, not cold. And I will let that sit in there so the paste doesn't dry to it, and then we'll just wash that off at the end. Because I am not changing colors, I'm going to just kind of be careful when I'm overlapping. Now there's a way you could dry this with a dryer. Actually, I think I might do that. Let me pull my little hair dryer out. Right here, I just reorganized my area. I'm losing it. Plug this in. Maybe plug it in if I can figure out. No, I'll have to unplug that. Still working on my setup. So this is just a craft dryer, and all I'm going to do is just dry that with the craft dryer very quickly, just to make sure it's kind of set so that it doesn't have a tendency to peel up. I'll still need to be careful when I place the other transfer down. So just give that a little bit, and then I always like just to test it out with my hand to feel. If it feels cool, it's probably not quite dry yet, or if it's tacky. But as you can see, it's not coming off on my fingers. It does not feel cold or tacky. So that's good there. And I want to do keep life simple. That's just what I'm choosing. So the next transfer, I'm going to do my best to line up. Like I said, I want it a little bit higher. Now the one thing I don't want to do is push down too hard on the paste that with the transfer for the paste that I already laid down, because although it is dry, it's not perfectly dry and set. So I'm going to push the transfer down around the letters that I'm going to be using my chalk paste on, but I'm going to hold the edge up a little bit so that it doesn't interfere with the word keep. Okay, I'm going to do the same general process, just need a little bit. And we're gonna, again, just pull the chalk. You can go side to side or up and down, whichever you prefer. And that looks like I really got quite a bit off there, so that's probably good. And I'm just gonna pull gently and throw that in my water bath. That one you don't need to fuzz as much. The reason I didn't fuzz that one as much is because the letters are much thinner on this one than this. So I fuzzed this so that it was easier to remove, but because those letters were thinner, had a thinner script, I chose to not worry about that as much. So same thing, we're gonna hit that with just a little bit of heat to dry it, just so we can keep chalking. The rest of our sign. Okay. And again, I'm going to check and see if it feels dry, and it does. Yes, it does. So I'm going to go ahead and put on the simple. And again, I'm going to take the time to fuzz this so that the back of the transfer picks up a little bit of fuzz from the towel, which again just makes it a little bit easier to pull off because the adhesive really will stick to the surface, and that's great, but you don't want to wrestle with it to get it off at the end. So I'm basically gonna kind of eyeball that. Kind of check. It needs to come up just a touch. Now, again, I'm just gonna try to not let that adhesive of the transfer stick down onto that little part of the F there, because I want it to set and not pull up part of that letter when I pull off the transfer for this. So again, just dab, a little bit there. Take our squeegee and again, just spread the chalk. I need a little bit more. These letters are a little thicker. Again, very same size as the first part, the keep. So I'm gonna add just a little bit more, make sure I get good coverage. There we go. And then, again, just scrape off the excess. That goes right back in the container to be used at a later date. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. Ooh, that is cute. I love it, love it, love it.